name is Danielle Casterline. I'm the product category manager for SALADMASTER.
And I'm Luis Garcia. I'm the Director of Business Development for SALADMASTER, and we're here to talk to you about how to properly use and care for your amazing cutting boards.
These boards are beautiful and can make a great statement piece within your kitchen. However, like all natural elements, they do require an extra level of care.
Yeah, so we've got the boards in our house. So what is the first thing we should do in order to care for these boards?
Yeah, absolutely. So I always recommend a first inspection. Look for any scratches, dents, any pieces of wood that maybe aren't completely secured, pieces of wood that maybe have a gap in them where wood isn't actually filling the space, or even wood that or glue that is coming out from the crevices.
I see. So a first really good visual inspection, and then say you find something wrong. What do you do at that point?
Yeah. So you're going to immediately contact dealer services, and the boards are covered by a 2-year warranty covering all manufacturing defects. So they'll help you there.
So Danielle, explain to us, you mentioned that this requires an extra level of care. What does that look like?
So I mentioned earlier as well, these are natural elements. This specific element obviously is wood, which is extremely porous. Anytime you have a porous type of product, it's going to absorb any liquid that it comes into contact with. So when it's coming into contact with liquid, it's expanding, and when that liquid is leaving the board, it's going to be contracting. So it's very important that when you're washing it and drying it and storing it, you're using the proper techniques.
Okay, so I need a little bit of help here. So you said that we can't really submerge this in water. It shouldn't be submerged. So how do you wash it?
Yeah. So I'm going to do a quick little demonstration so you can see kind of what I'm talking about.
Okay.
Whenever you're washing it, you're going to want to put it in the sink, right? And then I always get a hot, soapy towel that is damp, and I use it to wash the surface of the cutting board. I'm always making sure that once I have cleaned the side that I have just used, I also turn it and I get the other side wet. If you want to be super extra, you get the sides as well.
So would you also do that the first time that you use the board, or just after you've, like when you take it out of the package, or how often should you do both sides?
Every time.
Okay.
And the reason for that, when I talked about the expanding and contracting earlier, if you only submerge or put one side of the board into contact with liquid, it's going to expand on this side, right? But if you don't expose this side, it's only going to contract. So it's expanding and contracting in one direction, which could cause it to warp or cup and potentially even crack long term.
Okay, and let's say, do you ever find some warping or cupping with your board? And if you do, what are the steps to deal with that?
That's a great question. If your board does warp or cup or anything like that, don't worry. Most cases, it's not irreparable damage. You can normally always just rewash it. Again, both sides with water, wipe it down with a dry towel, and then if the board is warping in this direction, you're gonna wanna place it on the opposite direction and let gravity do its thing. Overnight, it'll flatten out, auto-correct itself, and then in the morning, your board will be back to new, and you can store it vertically, which is the way we recommend to store it, so that way it has the proper exposure to air on both sides, and it dries at the same rate.
What other things should we avoid doing with these boards?
That's a great question. Another great question. The number one thing that I always tell people is don't put these in the dishwasher. The second thing that I always tell people is don't submerge it in water or run water over the top of it. That saturation is too much for a product that's made out of wood. The next thing is, which this one might be a little less common sense. Most people may not know this, but if you put any kind of vegetable or fruit that's gonna release a bunch of liquid and you leave it on the board for a prolonged amount of time, it could also cause damage because of the amount of liquid the boards are coming into contact with. The last one is setting your board just like this, especially if it's wet. We always recommend to store it vertically, so again, both sides are exposed to the same amount of air and can dry at the same rate. If you're doing it like this side is not getting any access to air, whereas this side is already drying. The last and possibly the most important thing that I want to leave you guys with today is making sure that you understand that the extra layer of care that is going to help you the most is mineral oil treatments.
That's awesome. How often should you treat the boards with mineral oil?
So we recommend to follow the instructions on the packaging for the first 1 to 2 months. After that, it's going to be completely dependent on how often you use these. If you're like me and you use them every day, I do mineral oil treatments once or twice a week. But if you only use it once a month, then you really only need to do a treatment once a month.
Okay, sounds simple enough.